Hey friends, Alvin here. We are with Enoch Lau, who is the youth pastor at Mississauga Chinese Baptist Church. And so we're going to take a few minutes to see what he's been learning today. Welcome, Enoch.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. So let's jump into this. One of the first questions I've been asking a lot of people when we've had these kind of reviews is this. Right now with your youth, since all this started in March break, what kinds of changes have you noticed in them so far?
Changes in the youth or just
Yeah, in the youth themselves. Yeah.
um, I think for some of the youth it's been like normal and usual. I think it's very similar to adults. Some adapt really easily because this is this is pretty much their regular life.
Mm.
Nothing has really changed that much. But for others, it's definitely taken a toll.
Mm.
Where some of the students really miss their friends when we ask them and talk to them online. We would ask them what they miss most, and it's just to be physically present with their friends, to interact with them. So I guess it hits them emotionally that way, and
Mm.
friendships. Um, yeah.
So what ways are you finding them coping with that?
I find that the way that some of them cope is some would join the youth group online in Zoom, or others would simply interact with their friends through online gaming or their own different platforms of social media, or whatever their parents sometimes might set up as well. I've seen some families would do dinner together with other families over video call. So I've seen that happen, and then there are just some that hasn't had a good coping mechanism where there isn't anything out there for them.
So from a pastoral standpoint right now in your role, what have you found helpful, or at least what are things have you tried in reaching to those in that segment?
For those students, um, what I've tried to do is at least utilize their parents, engage with their parents
Mm.
by giving them resources. So at least the parents, because the parents are around, they're still able to spiritually care for their child, and not just spiritually, just care for them all around.
Hmm.
And so giving them the right resources, that way they might have a good family devotional time, or if the parents need other type of, because before school there was online school, there was nothing, and so we sent out resources where there's different free uh, educational sites that they could utilize as well. So that's one way that we try to at least help the parents and the kids that way, is to equip the parents to care for their own kids, and like giving them even mental health, um, like websites that they could read and be equipped as well.
Good. No, that sounds great. And so right now, over these last few weeks, if I remember correctly, you've tried some different things. What kinds of, for lack of a better term, what kinds of experiments have you been doing that have been successful so far?
We tried to see what works best in terms of online engagement when we're together on Zoom. Because the one thing for sure that we can't have is not like in person where everyone can talk at the same time.
Mm.
Because if everyone does that on Zoom, it just keeps on glitching out, or cutting in and out, right? So it's finding ways to manage that then. Like, still, especially the younger ones, like middle schoolers, they will just speak out of nowhere and just ask their friends right away, and they'll have their private talk with, and so it just cuts in on everyone. But so then we would have like questions that are silly and fun, and we ask each of them to share. That way they are all spotlighted,
Mm.
and get to tell everyone their own opinion, and have a voice that way. Other ways is that because for us, our youth group is middle school and high school all together. When it was always a struggle already in person. Is that how do we cater and how do we take care of this two different life stage well? So we would break out, and so in the same way, the good thing about Zoom is that they do have the breakout groups. That way, we utilize that and make sure the middle school students are together, the high school students are all together, and they're sharing within their own age group. That way, it's the same type of life experience that they're going through, and they can chat. Um, and yeah, we have the right leaders in place for each of them that way.
Hmm. And so, what kinds of struggles have you encountered in the last few weeks through all these processes?
I think the biggest challenge is still getting all the students to show up.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, like I think it's the same with like in person, but it feels at least by numbers, like in person we get a lot more to turn out. But then online, the good thing is we do have a consistent core group that is showing up every single week, and twice a week even. Um, but then one biggest area that's been impacted is middle schoolers.
Hmm.
When they come in, they feel because um, I guess it's just their own age group. When they don't see their friends there, they feel like they don't know what's going on,
Hmm.
and they don't feel like it's as fun. Even though even if their friends are there and we're playing the exact same game, and doing the exact same activity, they feel like it's more boring because their friend isn't there. And
Hmm.
so the hardest part is trying to prompt the middle school students to come out consistently. That way, they can see their friends. The other like part of the drawback is their families aren't close, and that's why they're not coordinated in all showing up at the same time. Or sometimes some families might have a family gathering. And they're doing supper together, so one student can't show up, and so if their buddy thinks that their friend is showing up and they don't see them, they're discouraged, disappointed, and then they don't want to come back the following youth night, right? And so um, it's working against that and trying to keep on encouraging them to show up and come out. So one way we try to tackle that over the last week was send out an invite specifically to middle school students and saying that we're carving out a specific space just for them.
Hmm.
And by doing that, they have shown up, but still they're not all meeting at the same time where they're catching their friends. Um, so yeah, it's working around that and continuing to encourage them to come back, talking to the parents, telling them and informing them why their students or their own son or daughter might not like it as much. And the parents kind of understand, and they're also doing their part to try to encourage and say, hey,
Hmm.
why don't you see if they're there today, and then stick around. If not, then you can turn it off. So there's that happening as well.
Okay. No, so it sounds like definitely you're getting some good parental backing with their kids.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so right now, as you've been kind of readjusting to things, compare, let's say, early March to now, how have you found your own role changing in all this?
Um, it hasn't changed much.
Okay.
I don't really feel like it's changed at all, except the fact that I talk to people through a screen now, instead of being in person. And games are catered towards doing it through the screen, or different apps and websites, rather than being in person. So yeah, so that's been limiting. Other than that, my role is still the same in caring for the students I've been entrusted with by parents and also, by God, at this church. And yeah, it's figuring out different ways to continue to equip them, build them up, and also trying to resource parents. Um, that's not changed. That hasn't changed at all.
Hmm. I'm curious, how have your adult leaders been responding to all this so far?
They've been good. They've been really good. If anything, there's even uh, more engagement for
Hmm.
some, because so my team, I actually have two teams. So before all this started, we had a Friday team. Friday night is our youth group time, as well as Sunday is another youth group time. Traditionally it was called Sunday school, but we scrapped that now, and it's also a youth group time.
Hmm.
That way, there's cohesion in it. Um, and so I would have a Friday team and Sunday team, and only expect them and have them committed to one of those dates.
Hmm.
So that's how it worked. And then of course, if they're able to, they can definitely show up the other date as well. But in person, those opportunities were far less, and where just because people's lives are busy with their own families, with work and different type of engagement. But then now I've found, at least online, it's so much easier actually for some of these youth workers, especially my team, to just pop in on the Friday night and on the Wednesday night when we do it. So so when it's scheduled their time, they would lead, but then the others would at least jump in and join in. So that actually helps the overall, I guess, atmosphere within the Zoom. That way, also
Hmm.
the students are seeing the same youth workers out there, the same friends, and there's consistency that way. So that's actually been a bonus for um, my church and my team.
Cool. So, given that, then, and maybe this is hard to forecast, but how do you then see their involvement in the coming months? Is it How do you see it readjusting potentially?
Um, for me, in my context, is actually very different, because I already know that come September, I'm losing a few youth workers.
Hmm.
And that was already known for a while now, just because of life circumstances, um, specifically having children. That's why they have to step down. Yeah, and so yeah, we like, as a team, we anticipated that already, and so actually there during this time, I guess it's like a good final push for them before they stop serving for however long they need to.
Mhm.
So that's a good thing, I guess. Then, um, yeah, contextually to my church then, and our team, the challenge would be recruitment for the fall.
Mhm.
That's going to then be the harder part. Even with the ones that will join back again, I don't, like, personally, for me, I don't demand that the youth workers show up again both both times that we meet.
Mhm.
Um, so that's not expected, but I think for the youth workers themselves, um, they value it, and they love serving the students. They love the students, and so definitely they're more encouraged to attend even more.
Mhm.
But of course, knowing that different life circumstance will come up, and they'll for sure at least commit to the day that they committed to. Um, so yeah, so there's, I think there's that. Um, I don't, I guess for my team, it won't really change much. If anything, it might revert back a little bit, because we're going to get a different crew of people coming in.
Okay. And so for yourself, whether it's from a ministry aspect or a personal aspect, what's something that stuck out to you that you've learned during these last few weeks?
For myself, what I've learned um, has been from my student leaders. They've really stepped up throughout this time.
Hmm.
Um, so the way that our evenings are structured is that we would do a quick icebreaker and then a teaching by the youth worker and we would break down into different small groups and age groups that way. And then after that we would still have about 45 minutes to do an activity, and that activity is led then by my student leaders. So in the past, the student leaders have led program before or activities before, but it would be once in like every quarterly. So like once every 3 months they would lead, and then they would do like one huge event. So it would be like Christmas. They would do a outreach for their friends, and they would throw a party that way, and that would be their big thing. Or it would be Easter. Well, we didn't have that this year. So that's what they would be in charge of. But then because we changed platforms and we're here now, we've actually challenged them to lead the activity every time we meet up, and so they would sign up, and now they're leading even more frequently. So it's about once a month, if not even more than once a month. Um, so that's been happening, and that's actually been good. Um, yeah.
No, it's cool. It's neat how they're like you said, they're stepping up, right? They're stepping up to the challenge and taking a deeper ownership into how that all that looks. So that's encouraging. So you mentioned, Enoch, how some of your student leaders are taking a step up in their development. Can you give me an example of what that's been like?
Yeah, it's been really cool. So one of my student leaders, he wanted to play a game on Steam. Um, and specifically, I don't know if you guys have heard. There's this game called Brawlhalla. It's like Smash Brothers, but on Steam, and it's for free. So a lot of fun. But then I told him that if he wanted to make that happen, he has to write a whole document to the parents, outlining exactly what they have to do, or what their son or daughter has to do to sign up, and get it all ready before the Friday hits. And so he wanted to do it on one of the Friday nights, and I told him he needed to get me the document by Monday so I can email out to all the parents, giving them that document. And so he did it. It was great. He even afterwards, when we debriefed and talked about it, he was mentioning how he could improve the document by screenshotting different parts, and adding in graphics to the document. So that was really cool to see how this my student leader is stepping up, and also thinking of ways to improve. So that's been great, and then that also helps and affects the other student leaders that way too, where now they also know the standards that we have, and what would benefit others and be helpful to others. So if they come up with new games, and there's material that's required, or resources that's required by all their peers when they join, they have to prepare ahead of time. So that's been really good.
And so for the rest of those who might be watching or listening to this, what's a word of encouragement that you would offer them right now?
Um, for me, it would be stay flexible,
Hmm.
um, because who knows really how it will all be in the next few months, right? And however long it will take the bands or the different phases to kick in. And so we need to constantly make tweaks along the way. So don't, like, it's great and it's good. We have a plan, and you guys should plan too, but hold it quite loosely,
Hmm.
just because there's no certainty right now. And of course, like at the end of the day, all these plans allow the Spirit of God to lead you and guide you, and so it's all about being flexible. Um, yeah.
No, that's great words of advice and great words of wisdom. Well, I appreciate your time, Enoch. Thanks for taking some time to share both what's happening at Mississauga Chinese Baptist, but also things that you've learned along the way. So I appreciate your time.
Thanks.